Microwave 375 ml of milk with 200 grams of raisins for a minute, then let them soak for 15 minutes. Then add in 50 grams of butter at room temperature. We can then grate the zest of one orange directly into your mixing bowl. Next, add in 1 egg, 6 grams of instant dry yeast, 600 grams of flour, and then my secret ingredient, 110 grams of fig jam. The milk, now infused with natural sweetness of the raisins combined with the fig jam, replaces the need for any added sugar. That means that these hot cross buns gets all the delicious sweetness purely from the fruit and whatever sugar that's already added in the jam. We don't need to add any more refined sugar in the buns. It makes them rich, naturally sweet, and full of flavor. Now for the spices. Add 2 teaspoons of cinnamon along with 1.5 teaspoons of allspice. Or, like I did, mix half a teaspoon each of nutmeg, cloves, and ground ginger for a more layered flavor. With all the dry ingredients in the bowl, pour in the milk mixture and knead for about 5 minutes until the dough comes together and feels smooth and elastic. Lightly spray the dough with water, then cover it with a plate or bowl to keep it from drying out. Let it proof for about an hour in an oven set to bread proofing mode, or for about 2 hours at room temperature until it doubles in size. Next, knead the dough for about a minute to release any large air bubbles. This recipe makes 15 medium-sized hot cross buns, so what I did was I weighed the dough, then divided it by 15, which gave me about 87 grams per bun. Once I had 15 equal pieces, I quickly kneaded each one before shaping them into smooth balls. Then, place the buns on a baking tray lined with parchment paper or a reusable baking mat. Lightly spray them with water to keep them from drying out, then let them proof in a warm place for 30 to 45 minutes. Meanwhile, we can preheat our oven to 180 degrees Celsius or 356 degrees Fahrenheit, and then we can start preparing the dough for the crosses. When I had my first hot cross bun as a young child, I remember being really disappointed by how bland and gummy the traditional crosses were. That's why, in this recipe, I've ditched the usual plain flour paste and replaced it with a decadent, crispy shortbread batter. It adds both flavor and texture, making these hot cross buns more delicious than ever. To make the shortbread crosses, I'm using vegetable shortening just because it's softer and easier to pipe, but if you already have room temperature butter on hand, go ahead and use that instead. Just swap it in the same amount. You'll need 70 grams of vegetable shortening or softened unsalted butter, 60 grams of all-purpose flour, and 30 grams of icing sugar. Mix them very well, and if your butter or shortening is too stiff, you can always put it in your oven that's already in proof bread mode. I use parchment paper instead of a piping bag to save on plastic, but feel free to use a piping bag if that's easier for you. When the timer is up, take your buns out of the oven and we can start piping the crosses. One of the greatest things about this shortbread dough is how forgiving it is, especially if you're not super confident with piping. If you mess up or don't love how a line looks, no worries. Just pick up the dough back up with your fingers and pop it back into your piping bag and try again. In the meanwhile, preheat your oven to 180 degrees Celsius or 358 degrees Fahrenheit. The buns will take about 22 minutes to bake, but start checking on them around the 18-minute mark because every oven's a little different, so yours might take a little bit faster or slower. While the buns are baking, let's get the glaze ready. I'm using grape jam today, but apricot works beautifully too. Just add 1 teaspoon of jam and half a teaspoon of water to a small bowl, then microwave it for up to 30 seconds. The jam should melt down nicely and blend into the water just like this. My buns are now ready, so it's time to brush on the glaze. Since I used grape jam, which has a purple tint, I'm going to avoid brushing over the crosses just to keep them nice and clean. If you're using a lighter color jam like apricot, you won't need to worry about that as much. And that's it! Your delicious hot cross buns are ready to be devoured. Soft, sweet, and fresh out of the oven. Enjoy every bite, and I'll see you next time.